Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spark and Shine. There are moments in life when everything goes quiet, not because nothing is happening, but because something sacred is being composed beneath the noise. You may think you're stuck, paused, or overlooked. But what if this silence is not the absence of progress, but the precise rhythm of a deeper becoming? Like roots growing in darkness before a tree breaks the surface, your transformation is occurring out of sight. The universe doesn't rush, it aligns. It aligns. And every delay, every detour is not a disruption but choreography. Each setback a soft whisper guiding you closer to who you were always meant to be. This isn't just about working harder. It's about listening harder, looking deeper, cool, trusting that your life is not random. It's a thread woven into something vast and eternal. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be recognized by who you were, but by who you dared to become. Have you ever noticed how the most important things in life begin in silence? A child is formed in the quiet of the womb. Trees take root in the dark soil before they ever reach for light. The most powerful pieces of music begin with stillness. Before the first note is struck, there's a pause, a breath. And yet, when it comes to our own lives, we often resist these moments. We rush them. We panic in the pause, mistaking stillness for stagnation. We think nothing is happening. I must be falling behind. But what if the stillness isn't failure? What if it's preparation? See, the world teaches us to measure our worth by motion. Hustle, grind, perform, achieve. Keep going, even if you're going in circles. But growth, the kind that changes you from the inside out, doesn't usually happen in the spotlight. It happens in the unseen, in the in-between, when the world has gone quiet and all you're left with is yourself. That silence you're avoiding. That's not emptiness. It's where you meet your essence. There's a kind of sacred work being done in the background when everything else seems still. We don't notice it because we've been conditioned to only trust what we can track. But becoming isn't always visible. Sometimes becoming is what happens while no one's clapping, while no one's watching, sometimes not even you. Think about it. The caterpillar dissolves inside the chrysalis, not rearranges, dissolves. It has to break itself down before it can fly, and no one applauds that part. And no one applauds that part. No one sees the moment the wings form, but it happens all the same. The question is, will you have enough faith in the quiet to let it happen to you? You may be in that space now, a space where you feel forgotten, overlooked, or like your story stalled. But what if you're not stalled at all? At all? What if you're simply underground, taking root? We forget that roots grow before fruit. We want the results, the recognition, the arrival. But the roots come first. Because the deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. You can't fake rootedness. It's either there or it's not, and it's only formed in silence, in solitude, in deep focus. This is where your focus matters, not just as concentration, but as a sacred act of trust. To focus hard isn't just about tuning out distractions. It's about choosing to stay in the process even when there's nothing to show for it yet, even when it feels like no one sees you. Because, eventually, the work will speak. Eventually, the fruit will show. Let's go. But only if you are willing to remain rooted while no one else could see what was happening beneath the surface. And here's the beautiful twist. The longer you stay underground, the less you'll need recognition when you emerge. You emerge. Because your growth won't be about proving something anymore. It'll be about becoming something. You'll have built something within yourself that no applause could ever give you and no criticism could ever take away. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the silence is the birthplace of self-trust. Maybe it's where your life starts to harmonize with something larger. Because you aren't just here to grow tall, you're here to grow deep. You're not here to be seen, you're here to become real. There's a line in music theory called the rest. It's that deliberate pause between notes, a silence that gives meaning to the sound. Without the rest, the music would collapse into noise. In the same way, your silence, your delay, your obscurity, they aren't the absence of purpose. They are the rest. They're what give your story weight, rhythm, and eventual resonance. So don't rush this part. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins. Not with applause, not with visibility, but with silence, with patience, with the quiet confidence that something is building inside you, even if no one, not even you, can quite name it yet. Your roots are growing. Let them. We don't usually invite pain to the table. We don't welcome it like an old friend or treat it as a wise teacher. Most of the time, we flinch, we avoid, we resist. And that makes sense. Pain is uncomfortable. It disrupts our plans. It interrupts the story we thought we were writing. But here's the thing, disruption isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's design. You see, pain doesn't show up to break you. It shows up to break open the parts of you that are ready to expand. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're ready for something deeper, something real, something aligned. And alignment almost always requires discomfort, because growth and comfort have never once shared the same room. We think of challenges as detours, as if they're taking us away from our path. But what if they are the path? What if pain isn't a distraction from your purpose, but a doorway into it? Think about the things in your life that shaped you the most. I'll bet they weren't the easy moments. I'll bet they weren't the wins or the applause or the smooth chapters. It was the breakups, the failures, the quiet nights full of doubt. The moments when you were forced to sit with yourself and ask, who am I now? We don't grow just by moving forward. We grow when we're stopped, when we're pressed, when something doesn't go as planned and we're forced to choose. Shrink back to who we were or stretch into who we're becoming. And that stretching, it's not supposed to be gentle. That's why it hurts. But hurt isn't the same as harm. There's a kind of pain that's clean, necessary, refining, like a sculptor chiseling stone. The stone doesn't enjoy being chipped away. But every strike is revealing something within it, a form that was already there, just waiting to be uncovered. That's what pain can do for you. Not erase who you are, but expose the truth that's already inside you. The question isn't, will I face pain? The question is, will I let it shape me or shut me down? Because if you look at the most beautiful, impactful people, the ones who walk with a quiet strength, who don't just chase success but radiate purpose, there's always a backstory, always a struggle, always a moment or many when they had to fall apart to fall into place. Pain gives you perspective. It burns away the non-essential. It reveals what actually matters. The friend who stays when everyone else fades. The dream that won't leave, even when nothing is working. The truth about who you are when everything you've built is taken away. That kind of clarity can't be taught. It can only be earned through experience. You're not fragile for feeling pain. You're not weak for being hurt. That sensitivity, that ache, is proof that you care, that you're awake, that you haven't gone numb in a world that teaches us to avoid, suppress, and distract ourselves from the real work. And the real work is to stay. Stay with yourself. Stay with the moment. Stay in the fire long enough to let it refine you, not define you, because when you do, something shifts. One day you wake up and realize you're not who you used to be. You're calmer, clearer, a little more grounded. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Not because the pain went away, but because it carved a space inside you that made room for something deeper. A purpose, a knowing, a kind of peace that doesn't depend on things going your way. There is beauty in being bent, but not broken. In being challenged, but choosing to rise anyway. Pain doesn't make you less, it shapes you into more. So the next time life feels heavy, when things fall apart, when it feels like the ground beneath you is shaking, pause. Breathe. And instead of asking, why me? Try asking, what is this revealing? Because maybe what's happening to you is really happening for you. Maybe the pressure isn't punishment, it's precision. A divine invitation to realign with the truth of who you are and the person you're becoming. There's a strange moment in every journey when you stop recognizing the person in the mirror. You catch yourself mid-thought or mid-habit and wonder, who am I becoming? It's not confusion in the shallow sense, like forgetting where you left your keys. It's deeper. It's the kind of disorientation that makes you question everything you once called normal. And here's the truth we don't talk about enough. That moment isn't a crisis. It's a sign of evolution. See, we love clarity. We love identity, definition, structure. We love knowing who we are, what we do, where we're going. But transformation doesn't honor those preferences. Transformation is disruptive by nature. It demands surrender. Not because it wants to erase you, but because it wants to return you to the version of you that existed before the noise, before the conditioning, before the world told you who you had to be. And that process of returning can feel like losing. It's scary. You begin to shed old thoughts, old beliefs, even old relationships. Things that used to excite you now feel empty. Conversations you once enjoyed start to feel hollow. And you wonder, is something wrong with me? But nothing is wrong. Something is right. Something is real. And it's waking up inside you. You're not breaking down. You're breaking through. Losing your identity isn't a failure, it's a necessary unlayering. Because so much of who we think we are was built in response to the world around us, we become what others expect. We wear roles, titles, masks, and call it personality, but it's often self protection. We adapt to survive, and we forget we were meant to thrive. Eventually, something within you starts calling for more. You feel the tension, the desire to change, paired with the fear of what that change might cost. And the cost is real. You might outgrow circles. You might feel distant from your old habits. You might not be able to explain your decisions to others or even to yourself. That's because you're not upgrading your life. You're upgrading your operating system. The system. It's like renovating a house you've lived in your whole life. At first, you start moving furniture, adjusting small things. But then you realize the walls are in the wrong place. The wiring is faulty. The foundation needs repair. And to fix it, you have to tear it down to fill it. For a while, everything looks worse. But you don't stop the renovation. You keep going because you've seen the blueprint. You know what you're building toward. That's what it means to not recognize yourself. You're standing in the middle of the remodel. The demolition has started, but the new structure isn't built yet. It's uncomfortable. It's lonely, but it's real. And it's holy. This is why focus matters so much in this season. Not focus in the disciplined sense, but in the devotion sense. You have to stay close to your core. You have to trust your own inner knowing more than you trust the crowd's opinion. You have to listen deeply, even when the signal is faint, because no one else can walk this for you. No one else can feel what you're feeling. And that's not isolation. That's invitation. That's invitation. You're being invited back into alignment with who you were always meant to be. Not the edited version, not the socially approved version, but the one who's been quietly waiting beneath all the noise. And yes, it might get messy. People might not understand. You might not be able to explain why certain things no longer fit. That's okay. Clarity doesn't always come first. Sometimes courage has to come before the clarity arrives. And here's the most beautiful part. On the other side of that confusion is not a brand new person. It's the truest version of you, the one who doesn't need validation to breathe, who doesn't seek applause to feel worthy, who knows exactly why they're here, even if they can't yet put it into words. You were never lost. You were buried. And now you're being uncovered, not all at once, but moment by moment, breath by breath. So if you're in a season of shedding, questioning, dissolving, good, stay in it. Don't rush the redefinition, because what's being rewritten is your relationship with yourself. And that's the foundation of everything else. Losing yourself is not the end of the story, it's how the real one finally begins. We talk a lot about focus these days, almost casually. Like it's something you can just download or install, as if it comes with the right app or planner or productivity hack. But real focus, the kind that reshapes your life, isn't a tactic. It's not about keeping your head down and pushing through your to-do list. It's deeper than that. Real focus is devotion, and devotion requires heart. When you're truly focused, you're not just managing your time. You're aligning with something greater than yourself. You're saying this matters more than the noise. This matters more than the urge to quit. This matters more than being understood right now. It's not just about what you're avoiding. It's about what you're moving toward with every breath. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they never fully commit. Not because they don't have ambition, but because they haven't rooted that ambition in something meaningful. Focus, in its deepest form, is about choosing what deserves your life. Not just your attention, but your energy, your intention, your becoming. And here's the part no one really tells you: when you focus like that, when you commit to something fully, everything else in your life starts to get louder. The doubts, the distractions, the old patterns, the people who like the less focused version of you. You don't just battle the outside world, you battle the world inside your head. Because the moment you give your life to something, you start grieving everything you have to leave behind. But that's exactly what focus demands. It's not just about clarity, it's about sacrifice. To focus hard is to say 1,000 tiny goodbyes to mediocrity, to comfort, to the fear of missing out. And yes, sometimes to people who loved you as you were, but may not recognize who you're becoming. The danger isn't in having too many distractions. The danger is in thinking you can keep all your options open and still expect depth. You can't plant seeds everywhere and expect a harvest in one field. At some point, you have to choose. And once you choose, you have to stay. Staying is the hard part. There's always a shinier path. a quicker reward at Z, an easier route. But real focus asks, can you stay loyal to something, even when it's not paying off yet? Can you hold the vision, even when there's no visible proof it's working? That's what separates the temporary from the timeless. When we look at people who seem to live with purpose, there's always an unspoken story behind their eyes. They gave something up. They walked away from noise. They chose solitude over applause. They went without answers for a long time. But they kept showing up. That's focus. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. It's about returning again and again to what matters most. And here's the shift. When you stop seeing focus as restriction and start seeing it as reverence, everything changes. You realize you're not depriving yourself of anything. You're devoting yourself to something. You're not cutting life out. You're carving something beautiful into it. You're not saying a no just to have more discipline. You're saying a no because you finally know what's worth saying a yes to. Focus becomes less about achievement and more about alignment. Less about performance and more about presence. You stop trying to do a million things well and start choosing to do a few things with your whole soul. And in that space, life gets quieter. But it also gets richer. The irony is, once you truly focus, you stop needing recognition. You don't need everyone to understand your path because you're no longer driven by being seen. You're driven by being true, and truth, more than talent or speed or strategy, is what carries you through the long road. So if you find yourself pulled in 100 directions, if your mind is always racing and your energy always scattered, maybe it's time to stop asking, how do I get more done? And start asking, what do I want to be devoted to? Because when focus becomes an act of devotion, your life stops being a reaction and starts becoming a response to something much bigger than you. You don't need more time, you need more truth. There comes a moment in transformation that no one prepares you for, the moment when you realize that some people won't recognize you anymore. Not because you've become arrogant, not because you've changed in some dramatic external way, but because you've realigned. And that shift, that quiet internal shift, disrupts the version of you they once knew. We don't talk about this enough. We love to celebrate growth, the glow up, the success, the results. But real growth, it's disorienting. Not just for you, but for the people around you. Especially those who are most comfortable with your old patterns, your old boundaries, your old way of showing up. When you evolve, they might not come with you, and not because they don't care, but because they connected with a version of you that was still performing a role. There's something humbling about realizing your life was never meant to be just about you. We live in a culture that celebrates individualism. A find your passion, a build your brand, a create your legacy, and there's value in all of that. But if you dig deeper, if you pause for a moment and really look at the fabric of your life, the people who've shaped you, the moments that redirected you, the doors that opened when you least expected, it starts to become clear. You've never been moving alone. Not really. The truth is, we are part of something vast, something interconnected, something profoundly intelligent, and every moment of your transformation ripples into someone else's story, whether you see it or not. Every time you choose to heal instead of repeat the past, every time you decide to grow instead of shrink, every time you stand in truth instead of blending in, that choice echoes. You becoming more of yourself gives other people permission to do the same. We underestimate how powerful our presence is. We think our lives matter only when we achieve something big or public, but impact doesn't require a stage. Sometimes the quietest shifts in you, your patience, your kindness, your focus, change the course of someone else's day or life. Without even realizing it, you're teaching people how to live with more courage, more clarity, more compassion, just by being who you are becoming. And that's the beauty of transformation. It's never isolated. It's relational. We're woven into this great unfolding, a kind of cosmic choreography that none of us fully understand, yet all of us are dancing through. You focusing deeply, listening to that quiet call inside, staying true even when it's hard, it's not just about your success. It's about contribution. It's about legacy, not in the sense of something you leave behind, but something you carry forward, a presence, a way of being that affects everyone you encounter, even briefly. It's strange, isn't it? The further you go on your personal path, the less personal it starts to feel. You start seeing how your pain wasn't just about you. It made you more empathetic. Your silence wasn't empty. It made you a better listener. Your struggle didn't isolate you, it connected you to others who are quietly walking through their own darkness. We often think transformation ends with us becoming a better, but maybe that's just the beginning. Maybe the real magic happens when your growth becomes someone else's lifeline, when the strength you fought for becomes shelter for someone else, when your voice breaks open silence for someone who hasn't yet found theirs. And no, you won't always see the results. Sometimes your influence will be invisible. A moment you forget entirely might live in someone else's memory forever. But that's the point. You don't need to see the full picture to trust that you're a part of it, because you are. Every person you encounter, every room you walk into, every word you speak, it all matters. It all contributes to something bigger. And when you really let that sink in, your life becomes sacred. Not because you're perfect, but because you're intentional. You start living like everything counts, like every conversation is a thread, like every decision either adds to the harmony or the noise. So when you feel small, when the road feels quiet, when you wonder if it's worth it, remember, this isn't just your story, it's our story. And your part matters. You focusing hard on your truth even when no one sees it yet, that ripples. That's legacy in motion. That's contribution without applause. That's purpose without ego. And maybe that's what we're all really here for. Not to rise above others, but to rise within something, to find our note in the greater symphony, to play it with integrity, and to trust that somehow, some way, it's making the whole sound more beautiful. So if you've been wondering whether your work matters, whether your growth, your silence, your struggle has any meaning in the grand scheme of things, I promise you, it does. You are not a separate story. You are a vital stanza in the poem of us. It's a strange thing to be growing into yourself and, at the same time, feel like you're drifting away from people you thought were permanent. But this isn't rejection, it's resonance. When you shift, your frequency changes, and not everyone is meant to match your new rhythm. And up to match your new rhythm. Some will misunderstand you, some will question your choices, some will even miss the old you and say it out loud like it's a compliment. Puh, it's a compliment. But you're not here to be the old you. You're here to be the most honest version of yourself. The version that doesn't need to shrink to be accepted or stretch to be seen. That version will cost you some comfort. It might cost you a seat at some tables, but what you gain is a relationship with yourself that is rooted in integrity. And no amount of applause can replace that. Let's be honest, we all crave being understood. We want to be seen, known, validated. That's part of being human. But sometimes the most powerful moment in your journey is when you let go of needing to be understood, and you choose to be authentic instead. Like, you start realizing you're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to be aligned with something greater. And in that alignment, some people will fall away. Some opportunities will pass you by. But what remains will be real. What stays will be true, and that is worth every loss. This is where focus becomes your anchor, because in the absence of external affirmation, you'll need something deeper to hold on to. You'll need your own conviction, your own clarity, your own quiet knowing that this path, while lonely at times, is yours, not borrowed, not inherited, not performed, but chosen. There's a particular kind of grief in becoming. No one tells you that. Because for every layer you shed, every limitation you release, there's something you lose. Sometimes it's relationships. Sometimes it's roles. Sometimes it's the comfort of being easily defined. But that grief is sacred. It's the cost of freedom. It's what makes the new version of you real. And here's the hard truth. Some people will never understand the reasons behind your shift. They'll only see the distance, the boundaries, the silence. They won't see the inner work, the late nights, the wrestle between who you were and who you're becoming. But that's okay. They're not supposed to. Your job isn't to explain your transformation. Your job is to live it. Fully, boldly, quietly if needed. Because when it's real, it doesn't need constant validation. It simply is. And eventually, the right people will recognize you, not by your appearance or your past, but by your essence, by the peace you carry, by the truth you embody. And you'll recognize them too, because they'll feel like home, not performance. They won't ask you to go back. They won't miss the old you. They'll meet you exactly where you are and walk with you into who you're still becoming. That's the gift of becoming unrecognizable. You stop living for perception and you start living from presence. You stop performing and start simply being. And in that space, you find a kind of freedom that isn't loud, but it's unshakable. So don't fear being misunderstood. Don't panic when people no longer see you the way they used to. That's not failure, it's confirmation. It's confirmation. It means you've outgrown the costume. And now, finally, you're coming home to yourself. If they don't recognize you anymore, take it as a sign your real self is finally being revealed.